Hello and welcome to Learn Photoshop today for the absolute beginner. In this tutorial, you will learn the basics of Photoshop, so you can start using it today. We will explore file handling, the user interface, the most used tools, the layers panel, layer mask, basic retouching, and some useful tips. Hi, my name is Ehsan, and I will be guiding you through this tutorial. If you have any questions, please leave a comment, and I will do my best to reply soon. Okay, let's get started. Section 1. File handling. This step is very easy as well as very important, because after working on a project, you would need to save your work in the correct file format that suits your needs. And Photoshop allows you to save and export your document in many different formats. When you open Photoshop CC, you can click the Home button at the top left corner, and you can choose to open a previously saved image or a Photoshop PSD file, or create a new document. You can also perform these same options from the File drop-down menu. If you choose Open, you will need to locate the file on your computer. We will start by creating a new document, and in the next page, you can choose the document dimensions, resolution, orientation, color mode, etc. You can choose Portrait for mobile devices, or Landscape for a wide screen. For this tutorial, I will create a 1080p HD document, which is 1920 by 1080 pixels, and choose a 300 pixels per inch resolution, which produces a very high quality image. A pixel being a very small dot on your screen. And the higher the number of pixels, the better the image quality, and the larger the file size. As well as pixels, you can also choose inches, centimeters, etc. As soon as you click Create, Photoshop will create your document, and you will see a blank document in the center of your screen, which is called the canvas. This is where all the actions for your project take place. After you complete working on your project, you can click the File menu, and save your project as a Photoshop PSD file, as well as a JPEG or PNG image. PNG is a larger file size image, and will include transparency if your image has it, for example, if your image is circular. As well as using the Save As option, you can choose Export As, and depending on your document, you can see the different available format options when you click the drop-down triangle. So, to summarize basic file handling, you can open a saved image or PSD file, you can create a new document, you can save your PSD file as well as Save As, or Export As, in any of the different available formats for your project. Besides saving your PSD file, the most used image formats are JPEG and PNG. And that concludes the file handling section. Section 2. Photoshop User Interface. We will now have a quick look at exploring Photoshop User Interface. This is better explored when you have an image open, so that all the options are available to explore. As mentioned earlier, the box in the center is called the canvas, where everything you do on your project takes place. A Photoshop image can be better visualized as a sandwich when you look from above, and every layer is on top of each other. And the layer you see in front is the last thing on top of the sandwich. On the right side, we have 4 panels: the color panel, the properties panel, the layers panel, and the history panel. If you click the Windows menu and scroll down, you see a tick next to everything that is currently showing on the user interface. You can add or remove anything that is in the Windows menu to your user interface. In the color panel, you can quickly select a new color, which you can see immediately, on the bottom left corner. On the top right corner, you have the icon that shows you the current active workspace type, and by default, Photoshop is set to the Essentials workspace. If at any point you change your workspace, you can click Reset Essentials to go back to the default settings. At the bottom right is the Layers panel, and every time you add something to your image on the canvas, a new layer is placed on top. For example, if you wanted to add text to your image, you select the Type tool, and as soon as you write your text, Photoshop creates a text layer and adds it to the top of your existing layers. If at any point, your layer panel disappears, or it wasn't there to begin with, click the Windows menu, and select Layers. Keyboard shortcut F7 also achieves the same result. On the top, we have the menu bar, where everything in Photoshop can be accessed from. Every time you click on a menu, it opens up showing you the available options, and some of the items have their own sub-menu with further options. On the left side, we have the Tools panel, which can be shown as 1 or 2 columns by clicking this double arrow to expand or combine the columns. Notice that every tool has different options or properties, and these can be seen in the Tools options bar, under the menu bar. Every time you select a different tool, the options for that tool are displayed in the Tool options bar. If you hover on any tool, you will have a brief overview of the tool name and the quick keyboard shortcut letter that you can press directly from your keyboard to open that tool. This will save you time and effort, because it is much quicker than moving the mouse pointer and clicking to open that tool. Another thing that is important to note is that most of the tools have a little triangle in the bottom right corner, denoting that this tool has multiple variations or similar tools. If you click and hold any of these tools, you will see all the available tools. Photoshop CC also shows you a brief description and visuals of what the tool does. This will be easier to understand after you've used some of these tools a few times. If you press Shift plus Control plus Alt plus K on Windows, or Shift plus Command plus Option plus K on Mac, you will get all Photoshop keyboard shortcuts. And from this drop-down arrow, you can choose the keyboard shortcuts you need. Section 3. Essential Tools. Starting at the top of the Tools panel, first is the Move tool, and this tool allows you to move anything by first selecting its layer, and then either click and drag the selected item, or use the directional arrow keys to move it up, down, left, or right. Next is the Marquee tool, which allows you to select any size rectangle, square, oval, or circle on your image by clicking and dragging your mouse, and you can then copy and paste your selection using Ctrl or Command plus C to copy and Ctrl or Command plus V to paste your selection. Photoshop will create a new layer with your selection cut out from your image. To create a perfect circle, select the elliptical marquee tool. Hold down the Shift key as you click and drag your mouse to create your selection. Next is the Lasso tool, which is the same as the Marquee tool, but you can use it to create a freehand selection of your image. Next is the Magic Wand tool, which selects a part of your image. Depending on the color of the part you select, you can then copy and paste your selection or delete it. This gives you an easy way to remove the background of an image if the background is the same color. One of my favorite tools is the Quick Selection tool, which is in the same group as the Magic Wand. And with this tool, you can select a part of your image and remove it or copy it onto its own layer. This tool is quite often used to cut out an object from an image and then place it on a different background. For example, if I wanted to cut out the girl in this image, I will select the Quick Selection tool, click to select the girl, and I can hold the Alt or Option key to subtract from the selection. After I complete the selection, I will click on the Layer window and select New and New Layer via Copy. This will cut out the girl from the image and place the cutout on a new layer. I can copy the girl cutout onto a new background, and in this case I will choose this building image. Next is the Crop tool, which you can use to crop your image from all 4 sides to remove any unwanted parts of your image. Remember to press Enter to lock in your changes. Next is the Brush tool, which you can use to paint over parts of your image. You can choose the size of the brush and the hardness. Select the color you want to use and start painting. There are a few special effects brushes that you may find useful. Just create a duplicate of your layer first, then you can experiment with all the different brushes. Then you can delete the new layer when you finish experimenting. Next is the clone stamp tool, which is very useful and allows you to take a sample of any part of your image and expand it to the adjacent area. For example, if I wanted to get rid of these bushes and change them to the sand with footprints, I would select the clone stamp tool. Then I would press and hold the Alt or Option key and click where I want to take a sample. Then start slowly painting on the adjacent area to change it. Depending on your image, you may want to experiment with the size of your brush before you take a sample to clone. Next is the eraser tool, which allows you to remove parts of your layer. To use the eraser tool, first select it from the Tools panel. Choose the brush size and hardness in the Options bar. Select the layer you want to work on and start erasing. You may need to right-click on the layer and choose Rasterize Layer before you can edit it. This is especially useful when you cut out a part of an image and place it on a different background. Then you can use the eraser tool to tidy up the cutout. The next tool is the gradient tool, which can add some extra effects to any image you create. There are many ready to choose from gradients, as well as 5 different variations you can apply to each one. In the Options bar, you can choose Linear, Radial, Angle, Reflected, and Diamond Gradient to choose the style of the gradient. Just to show you a quick example, I will create a new layer below the girl's cutout and add a gradient to 2 corners. If you click on the gradient, you can change the color of the gradient and add many different color variation points from start to end. For our example, I will choose a basic gradient with a color at the start and a transparent color at the end. You can be very creative with gradients, and the sky is the limit, with millions of colors and variations. The next tool is the Type tool. Most creators add some text on their images. And that's why, I think, the Type tool is probably the most widely used creative tool in Photoshop. To use the Type tool, select it from the Tool panel. Choose the font you want from the drop-down Fonts menu. Choose the style, the size and alignment, the color for your text, and just click where you want to add your text. Start typing, and notice that Photoshop creates your text layer in the Layers panel, with a thumbnail with the letter T. Once your text layer is created, you can select the Move tool to resize and move your text to the best position suited. The last tool we will explore is the Shape tool. And if you click and hold the Shape tool in the Tool panel, you will see a few different tools, as well as the last one, which is the Custom Shape tool. And this has many different shapes to choose from in the Options panel. While drawing some shapes, if you hold the Shift key, you will constrain the width and height of the shape. For example, if you wanted to draw a perfect square, then select the Rectangle tool and hold Shift while you click and drag on the canvas. Select the Custom Shape tool. Choose the shape you want. Choose a fill and stroke color. Then, click and drag where you want to draw. Section 4. Layers Panel Basics. In this section, we will explore the basics of working with layers. First, I will create a new document. Name it Layers Basics. Choose a HD size, and click Create. Notice that the background layer is locked, which means it can't be moved. And also, some options won't be available. For example, renaming the layer. If we double-click on the layer, we will be presented with the Layer Basic settings, where we can rename it. Select a color for the layer, change the blending mode, and the layer opacity. This will also unlock the layer. Next, I will select the Type tool and create a text layer. After I enter some text, I will select the Move tool, and use the Transform control handles to resize the text. And if I place the mouse pointer outside any of the corners, I can see a curved arrow, which lets me rotate the text box. I can click and drag the text box to a new position on the canvas. If I double-click the T thumbnail, I am back inside the Type tool, and I can edit the text using the arrow keys, or change the text color. Next, I will select the Shape tool and draw a circle. Choose the Fill and Stroke, and hold the Shift key while I click and drag. Now I have 3 layers. I will move the circle above the text box, and because the circle layer is higher than the text box, the circle will be on top of the text. But if I move the circle layer below the text layer, then the text will show above the circle. If I double-click the name of any layer, I can rename it. I can create a new layer above the currently selected layer by clicking the plus icon at the bottom of the Layers panel. I can duplicate a layer by dragging it to the plus icon. And I can delete a layer by dragging it to the trash bin. You will have noticed that each layer has an eye icon next to it, and that will make the layer visible or invisible every time you click it. Holding down the Alt or Option key and clicking on the eye icon of any layer will make all other layers invisible. Repeating this action will make all the layers visible again. If you select one or more layers and change their opacity, they will be semi-transparent. Making the opacity 100% again will reverse the previous action. If you want to group layers together, so you can move them together, or apply any action to all the group, then select the first one, and hold Shift, while you select the second layer. In this example, I will group both circles together. Right-click on any selected, and select Group from Layers, and give the group a name. In this case, I will call it Circles. We now have both circles grouped inside a folder with the name Circles. This will also help in organizing our Photoshop project, so we can find things easily. Now I will hide the circles and show you how you can change the text using colors from an image. Make sure the image is above the text layer. Then right-click on the image and choose Create a Clipping Mask. Now the image layer has been clipped into the layer below it. In this case, the text layer. And this is how you can place an image inside your text in Photoshop. Section 5. Using Layer Mask. We will now explore adding a layer mask to this text, and showing you how you can hide and reveal some parts of the text. First, we need to select the layer we want to add the layer mask to. In this case, it is the text layer. And text layers are signified by the letter T in the layer thumbnail. Next, click the layer mask icon at the bottom of the Layers panel. You will notice that Photoshop added a white thumbnail next to the T thumbnail, indicating a layer mask was added. The color white means the layer is completely visible. And to hide parts of the layer, we will select the color black before using the brush tool to paint on the text layer. At the bottom of the Tools panel, there are 2 large squares with the foreground color and the background color, as well as 2 small squares that can be used to reset the main squares if you change their colors. After you reset the main color squares, you can click the angled arrows icon to toggle the main color squares. Pressing the X key also toggles these squares. After making the foreground color black, we can select the brush tool. Make sure the hardness of the brush is at 100%. Then as you paint over the text, the parts you paint will disappear. Changing the foreground color to white and painting over these parts will make these parts appear again. And this is how you create a layer mask to hide and reveal parts of your image in Photoshop. Section 6. Basic Retouching. We will now explore one of Photoshop tools that lets you do magic with your images with just one click. Here is an image of a woman with a few facial blemishes, and I will now show you how you can use basic retouching to remove these blemishes. It is always a good practice to create new layers when making adjustments to an image, or at a basic level, at least work on a duplicate copy of the image, so that you will always have the original if you decide to restart again. And just as a reminder, you can drag your image to the plus icon at the bottom of the Layers panel to create a duplicate of the layer. This way, you can work on your duplicate without losing your original image. I will select the Healing tool from the Tools panel and zoom in onto the face so I can click on these blemishes. I will choose each blemish individually and click on it. Notice how Photoshop powerful Healing tool removes these blemishes with just a click. Photoshop uses a technology that recognizes the surroundings of the blemish and then just blends it in. How amazing is that? With one click, you can remove a blemish. We can also work on the image further by adjusting the brightness, contrast, and many other image properties. We will select the image layer and click on the image menu to select adjustments. Here, we can explore all the image adjustments options, but we will work on the most important, which are brightness, contrast, and color. For most purposes, and especially when starting out with Photoshop, it is better to use all the auto adjustment options, because that gives you Photoshop best bets. When you become more experienced with Photoshop, you can start using manual adjustments for all the available options. You can use auto tone, auto contrast, and auto color for the best and fastest results. Here is a before and after images to see the difference of the blemishes and other adjustment we made within minutes. I hope you enjoyed this quick tutorial to get you started using Photoshop. Thank you for watching, and I look forward to see you in another tutorial.